This video is for the new HMI on the 12x4 servo cycle. I'll take you through screen by screen and get you up to date. The first screen we're going to cover is the grind screen. When you press that, that's going to be our in-feed grind. Your cycle start, manual mode, or automatic, feeder on, or feeder off. Also can turn on our wheel. See our percent load on the center. Blue indicates that it's on. We can turn on our dress coolant, grind coolant, or the mist collector if need be. This machine is not equipped with said mist collector. You can set your ram position. Perform a ram compensation, plus or minus. Maximum of 1 thou at a time. See, there's a 2/10. We'll zero out. And we can go plus and minus. You see, okay, now our part's 2/10 bigger. And now our part's 2/10 smaller, which brings us right back to 0. We also have the capability of previous step and next step. That's going to tie into our next screen, so we're going to come back and cover those buttons in a second. You have your rake wheel grind RPM. Which is 35. Press the button again. And you'll have the dress speed will be on the other screen. Right now this is only, when you try to enable that, it will not take you to dress speed. So if you want to change the dress speed, you need to go back to your other screen. This is only for grind. Okay. So on the bottom of the screen, you can see time part loading. You can see the ram velocity when it's running in motion. You can see your cycle times, your cycle count, and your current time in cycle, as well as your current step. The next thing we're going to do, and we're going to open it up on the second screen. The main screen is split into 2 different screens, so we're going to utilize that so we can walk through the in-feed parameter screen that we can see here. So right here we can see we have course find position disabled and load position disabled. So we have our retracted position set here. Anytime you wish to change any of your buttons or your positions, simply press on them. You'll get the numeric keypad that pops up, enter in your value, and press enter. Okay? So this now has replaced what you would set here with your nuts, as well as your micro switch being at 0. So now our retracted position, instead of having to adjust here, we simply come over and set our retract position to 25 thou. Then we could have our start grind position at 5 thou. So instead of moving the nut forward and back trying to get that set up just right, we simply enter in the value for that, and then we have our course position at 1.5 thou. Our fine grind changes over at 5/10, and our final position is going to be 0. What we had to change our speeds in between that is from our retracted position to our start position. So for 25 thou down to 5 thou, we have our to start velocity. That is set for 0.1. Then we have our next velocity that says to course velocity. So that is going to be from our start position to our course position. It's going to go 1/2 a second. Then from our course position to our fine position, we're going to go 0.6. And then from our fine position to our final position, we're going to drop down to 0.2. Now you can add different positions in here. You can take positions out by changing this, pressing on course fine disabled. Then you'll have a retracted position, a start grind position, and your final position. Which means you're only going to have the 2 speeds, the start velocity and then 2 final velocities. So for this grind application, we have the course fine turned on and utilizing that. You also have a load position. Right now it's disabled. I can enable that. And you can set a load position here. In the event you have a part sweep tray under your blade, you'll enable that so that your retract position will be farther back. The part will drop down off your blade into the tray, get swept out, and the machine will go back up to load position. Also on the screen, you'll see spark out dwell. No longer is there a box on the side of your machine with a dial. Everything is right here on your in-feed parameter screen. So if you wish to change that, simply press on there and enter in the amount of seconds that you wish to spark out. The other adjustments on here are your retract velocity. We're set at 0.1 right now, and we have our part ejector turned on. To turn it off, we simply press the button, and now we can see that it's off. We have our part ejector duration. That means our part ejector is going to turn on and stay on for 1.5 seconds. So when we're running our cycle, it will then kick the part out and come back within 1.5 seconds. Also our retract well, or otherwise known as what you would call the load dwell, would be 1 second. So what's going to happen is the machine is going to cycle, and your feeder's all hooked up. You're going to ensure that all of your limits are made before it initiates the next part. If you wish to go through these positions when touching off, you can come into your in-feed grind screen that we had left up, and we can hit next step. What we'll do first is we'll hit our retract button. That's going to take us back to 25 thou, which was our clearance retract position. We can see that we have backed off of the indicator. When we hit next step, it's going to show us that we're all clear. We're going to stay in the retract position. Next step is to go to start position, so we can see them also stacking up on the top, as well as the current setup step here. And our position is now changed to 5 thou. We'll hit next step again. And we'll notice that we have gone down to 1.5 thou, which corresponds with our course position. And we can see course position there, as well as there. Next step again, which will take us to our fine grind position, which is 5/10. Also noted down there at 5/10, followed by our final grind position, which is 0. So when we're at 0 there, we can come in and see that we are now back at 0. So that's for once you have everything set up and touched off. We'll go through a touching off of the part in a later video. We're next going to cover jog all axes. On jog all axes, you can jog the ram, work wheel dresser, and reg wheel dresser. Upon starting the machine up, you'll need to home both the work wheel dresser and the regulating wheel dresser. You can see the values changing here, as well as see your dressers going back to the home position. Home position is located on the exit side of the machine. That is going to be your 0 position. So once those values go back and find the hard stop, they will then read 0. Once that's set, you know that your dresser's in its home position. If you wish to jog it side to side or touch off, you can enter in your velocity here, and I'm hitting the plus on the work wheel dresser, and we can see it coming towards the operator side. Coming towards the operator is plus, going towards 0 for home position is minus. Also on here you can see the ram jog. You can enable that. And right now we're jogging. So we're going to jog at 1 thou per second, and I can go plus. I can see the readout change here. I can also look down and see that we have jogged back off of 0 on our indicator. We also have the capability of doing a incremental move. So if I want to step forward or back in increments, I can set that up for 1 thou, up to 50 thou, and then I can enable that, and I can go in increments of 1,000, 6-3, 7-3, 8-3, and so on. So you can step in and out for jogging or touching off if you only want to go a set distance. Again, if I want to get back to the retract position, I hit the button. It will then take me right back to my clearance position. Status. Status is going to take us to our cycle count, gauge count, and shift counters. You can enable and disable these down here. So we have our cycle counter enabled. As we cycle the machine, we will then see values in here instead of 0. We can also see the status of the ram position, ram velocity that's moving at, ram torque, reg wheel velocity, reg wheel torque, cycle time remaining, time loading part, current dress time, and grind time. So what the machine will do is record all of the data and give you the information back. So to start recording, you simply press start recording once you're in production, and the machine will give you the data. So you can work from any screen at any time. Now we're going to do work wheel dress. On this screen, we can set up for single pass. That'll start the single pass. Anytime you want to stop and return to your start position, you press return. Anytime you want to stop the dresser, you just press abort. And we have the availability to do an intermediate position, which we're not utilizing for this operation. So you can see here on this dress sequence, we're starting actually on the operator side of the machine, which is 4.2 inches. We're ending at 2.2 inches, and we're dressing at 40 thou a second and returning back at 0.5. So your up and down motion is still the same. You lift your booster lever and that lowers your diamond. So as you can see here, we are at 2.14 inches. I ensure that my booster lever is horizontal. When I hit return, that's going to take me to my start dressing position of the work wheel. At which point I can turn on my coolant, on my dress coolant. Ensure that that turns on. My coolant tube is not clogged up. Then I can raise my booster lever and hit start single pass. I will start dressing. If I want to stop, I can hit abort dress and return, in which case it will return back to the start position. The same goes for the regulating wheel. At this point, this is where you would change your speed. You can press regulating wheel dress speed, you press it once, and it will take you automatically up to your dress speed that you have programmed here. If you wish to change that, press that, enter in a different value, and it will bump your speed up to there. The same thing we have here, your start single cycle, your return position. Here we are also starting on the, we're starting on the exit side this time at 2.5 inches and ending at 4.375. So for this, to get to the position, I hit return, and it's going to take us from our 0 position over to our start position. In which case, we're at our dressing speed, raise the booster lever, hit start, single pass. It will dress all the way across, and then you can lift the booster lever up, or pull it down so it raises the diamond, and hit return to get you back to your start position. Diagnostics. We can see here that it says programs running. You have the option for resetting the Ethercat network by pressing that. You can also reset your RAM and your regular access by pressing reset. You can see if you're on the positive or negative limit on the RAM when these are illuminated. So you can reset and enable both the RAM and reg wheel from this screen in the event that you need to disable it or you have an error. Sizing screen you're not going to utilize, but here's a quick synopsis of it. When sizing on your spring steel blades, you have your end position, sizing increment, forward dwell, retract distance, and retract dwell time. Counters. You have your cycle counter enabled. Here we're set to count to 1,000. So on your machine that you currently have, that's your timer. So every time you hit the cycle start button, you're going to receive your counter up. For this, when you hit cycle start, here on your in-feed grind screen, you'll get the counter to count out. Okay, your machine is not equipped with auto feed dressers, so you don't have to worry about the auto dress counters. Shift counters you can turn on to tell how many parts you make in a shift. You can turn on your gauge counter so that, say, every 1,000 parts you're going to get an alarm on your screen saying gauge your part. You can set that for, say, 25. Once the machine reaches 25 parts, you'll receive an alarm stating gauge your part. If you have a lot out of 1,000, once you reach 1,000 for your cycle counter, you'll receive an alarm that states cycle counter is counted out, and that would mean you're done with your lot. Auto comp after dress is disabled, as you do not have the auto dressers on this machine. The auto comp is also disabled, but you can utilize this. Say you know that after every 50 parts, your wheel has broken down 1/10 and you need to comp in. You can set it up to comp in 1/10 after every 50 parts. So say you know if you're up in production, you're grinding, you'll receive an alarm on your screen stating auto comp performed, and you'll see that show up in your total compensation. Part select is the library that holds your in-feed parameters. The alarm screen will initiate a alarm. So we're going to just remove the wheel guard cover. Once that's pulled away from there, the switch, we'll get a red light up there. The switch is located down there. If that's not made, you'll get a red light. You'll also get the alarm stating wheel guard interlock, the date and time, and description. So you can acknowledge it. You'll still receive your red light until you tighten everything back up and put it back together. When you open your wheel guard interlock, that will shut your work wheel off. Once you've acknowledged it, you can close that down. User levels are covered in the manual on how to set these up. Setting, your max spindle load allows you to reach a 50% load on the main motor before the machine goes into a fault and hits the retract position. This is where you can set your negative limits. If you had a cover over the whole machine and had that interlock, you would have the ability to bypass it here. Another statement of your part adjusters on or off. The upper corner of your settings screen is going to cover your auto coolant on or off. What that means is that you can have your auto coolant on so that every cycle goes in, grinds your part. Once it starts to retract, it shuts your coolant off and will not turn it back on until it initiates the forward motion again. So if you have it turned on, the coolant will shut off at the end of grind and restart at the start of the next cycle. If you have auto coolant off, the coolant will continue to stay on throughout the grinding and loading. settings. You can change from in-feed to through-feed grinding. Feeder. Right now we have the feeder turned off, and we can actuate the I/O for that lift. And lower. As well as the shift cylinder. This one here, we can actuate all of these with the button here, and you can see the state that's lifted. Lowered is white. You can see that the shift cylinder is retracted, that's blue. Extended is white, meaning it's not on it. And again, retracted on the push cylinder. You can see that via the lights on your cylinders. Correspond with the lights on your screen.